Aloha and welcome to this walkthrough of the ics-syllabus-manager system. If you go to this URL right here, UHM-ICS GitHub, you can see the nicely formatted version of the README. And to begin the walkthrough, let me just take you through basic use of the system. You invoke Meteor. The first time you run it, you want to invoke it with a settings file which contains the password stuff. So I've got two of those, settings.development and settings.production, so I can have different passwords for each environment. Of course, the production file is not committed to GitHub, but the development one is, so you can see what it looks like, and we'll show you that in a second. So if we run this, Meteor will hopefully come up. It does. And then if we go to localhost 3000, and let me just refresh to make sure I got the right version, we get this. We sign in. And in this application, you can't register. I have to predefine the accounts that are possible for this, and that's a drag. Oh, right. Okay. And so once you log in with the right credentials, you go to this page. There's basically three parts to it. There's a top form that allows you to indicate what syllabus you want to edit. There's a bottom form which indicates whether or not people have been editing syllabuses recently. There's a collection of syllabuses. There's another collection of kind of the edit status records. This allows people to avoid editing the same syllabus at the same time because they can see who else is logged in and doing it. And then there's this middle part of the page where once you click edit, it displays the actual syllabus, and you can go ahead and edit it. And then if you press save, it indicates that the editing has finished. There's also a menu item that allows you to download, for example, the syllabuses. And of course, you can then sign out. So it's basically a one-page application, and we're using the differential boilerplate, okay, which you can find here, and that's actually if you go to IntelliJ and you create a new Meteor application, you can use the boilerplate. And so what I did is I started with that boilerplate, and then I took things out and added a couple new things in. So I tried to remove the stuff that turned out to not be useful for this. So starting with the Getignore, you can see that we don't commit the IntelliJ stuff, and we don't commit the production settings for the username and password, but I can show you the development ones. So it's basically we're just going to say what's the username, what's the email, what's the password, and then on the server side, in the in the account side, maybe. Where the heck is it? I'm sorry, you're right. Okay, on the server side, in the syllabus.js, probably not the best place to put it. I should have had like an accounts.js. What you can see is I define a variable containing an array of all of the users that should be authorized to use the system. And then I'm getting the data for that from the settings file. Okay, you can see that right here. And then if we haven't defined any users, I go through and set them up here. Okay. What you can see up here is that that I'm using the account system that's provided by default with Meteor. It's very easy, and the way to prevent registration is just you just set this forbid thing to be true, and all of a sudden all the registration button goes away, and you have to predefine your accounts, and that's what I wanted for this application. In this application, there's only one account. Everybody shares it, which is generally not a good thing, but in this case, it's okay for our users. So moving along, you can see we define a collection called syllabuses. We're not using auto-publish or insecure packages, so we have to define Meteor methods. I predefine all the syllabuses, and so I don't need to have a create or add syllabus method. I just have to update a pre-existing method, and this is the way you do it when you use the autoform package, which I'll get to in a second. And then we have the publish and subscribe stuff here. Oftentimes you'll put the publish on the server, the subscribe on the client, and because I'm just publishing and subscribing the whole shoot and match, I figured, oh, just inside the JavaScript that defines my collection, I'll just put the publish and subscribe there. And then I have a bunch of data that are some subsidiary data about learning outcomes. The other important thing to note about these collections is that with the syllabus collection, I attach a schema called a simple schema, which provides metadata. You know, what are the fields that are defined and whether they're optional, and what their type is, and some other kind of stuff. This is really useful because of the fact that I'm using the Meteor autoform package. And this is, you know, really a super awesome package when you, I guess we can go here maybe. We could have gone there. Maybe you can go there, but you know, maybe you want to actually just stay here and look at the README. The idea here is that if you have a collection and you want to have a form, you know, an HTML form that updates elements, fields in the collection or displays them or anything like this, this autoform package does the plumbing for connecting your form to the backing document from the particular collection, and it simplifies this a whole lot. So I highly recommend, if you're in that kind of use case, that you investigate this autoform package. I didn't know anything about it. I spent about an hour learning about it and saved myself writing a lot of code. It's also kind of nice to have a schema associated with your collection. Okay, I have another one that's much simpler. I don't have a schema and I don't use autoform for that because I'm simply just displaying data about if anybody is editing a document or not. So that's the collections. Controllers, you know, you can look at this stuff, but this is really just a single page application. I actually didn't need to use the iron router. It turns out it came with the differential boilerplate, some boilerplate code to set up iron router, and maybe at some point in the future I'm going to extend this to have more pages, at which point having a router will be useful. But it's not really used that much in this particular application. On the client side, there's some compatibility stuff. I don't even know if that's actually necessary. There's style sheets for Twitter Bootstrap. That's definitely necessary. And then there's my templates. All I'm really using is this one home template, and you can see in the HTML file, I've got the HTML for the pull-down menu to choose the syllabuses, and then the display of the actual syllabus in two-column format using this autoform template directive or whatever you call it. I've got a couple session variables which I use to figure out whether or not I'm going to display that, and that is set when you choose a particular syllabus. The JavaScript is going to update that session variable. That's actually a helper method which is going to look up the session variable. And that's about it. And then there's another one down here for that edit status thing. If you go into the JavaScript, you can see I've got 3 session variables that I'm going to manipulate. I made some helper functions of kind of dubious merit to manipulate it. It was not dubious to actually set the strings for the session objects to actual variables, because I made a bunch of typos typing these stupid things in. And that's what motivated me to make these little functions so that I would actually not have to, I could get my editor to tell me whether or not I was typing the variable name correctly or not. Okay, so you can look through this code. I don't think there's anything, all that kind of complicated that you can't just read through and see what it does. On the public side, there's nothing of interest. On the server side, as I said before, there's I predefine all the syllabuses. So that starts up here, and then at the bottom of this method, at the bottom of the method, I initialize the syllabuses if there aren't any defined syllabuses, and then I initialize the users if there aren't any defined users. Other things to note is my JS-hint-rc file defines, kind of the standard JS-hint things, semi-standard in a semi-standard manner, and then there's a JS-hint-rc standard for Meteor, which basically defines a bunch of the global objects that Meteor uses for you, and then I added in global objects for the packages that I added, like the moment package and accounts and autoform, and then even the global objects that I defined in my code, which turned out to be these. So that's what I'm doing in this thing, is I'm adding into JS-hint-RC all my globals so that you don't have to be cluttering up your actual files with that stuff, and then you can run JS-hint-RC and it works okay. The other thing about JS-hint-RC that's probably useful to know is that when you when you run it, okay, what I've done is defined a custom scope, okay, because you kind of just want it to run over just your code. So basically I said, okay, everything in the both, and then in the client side, I'm not having it run over the Bootstrap stuff, but just the templates area, and on the server side, I have it run over that seeds directory. So it's probably a good idea to set up a custom scope for running JS-hint-RC so that you don't get a bunch of spurious errors. Okay, I think that's about it. Hope you enjoy this. I'll just show you quickly the set of packages that are defined here. I added in this zip-zap package. I think I added in the autoform package. I'm not quite sure if that's defined with differential by default or not, but those two packages were pretty useful.